Hi folks, welcome to the second video about privacy. I didn't feel like I covered everything in the first. The first thing I want to talk about is to keep this as much of a secret as possible because it can seriously affect your relationships with your friends, your family, your partner, although you should probably tell your partner that this is what you do. Even telling your best friend could result in some unsavory behavior. This didn't happen to me, but I know other people that it has happened to, where they told their best friend and their best friend, not thinking anything of it, not realizing that privacy is incredibly important, they said, well, my friend does XYZ, and then they say in the same breath, so and so, and they use your real name. So I know that's a really weird example and it's kind of hard for me to explain, but if I were to go to my coworker and say, hey, Janet, my friend Kelsey over here, she does spicy work on the side. Let me tell you all about it. And obviously nobody's going to say it with intent to harm you, but a lot of the time that can lead to getting doxxed. I'm not saying it always will, but just be careful about who you tell in your life because they may not have the same idea of privacy that you do. The more people you tell, the higher the risk that someone's going to find out that you don't want to find out. The second thing I want to talk about is the selling of physical items. You can sell used underwear, used socks, used toys. You can sell a variety of things. I've got used pasties up on my clip site for sale right now. I've got toenails. Trust me, people will buy anything. But if you're selling physical items, you have to think about how to protect your personal address, your home address. Now, I have seen some people say, well, I just put the buyer's address in the return address spot so that it's in two spots on the envelope, the package, whatever. And that's all well and fine. And sure, it can work. But if something comes back because the buyer's address was maybe written incorrectly or something along those lines, it's going to be marked as undeliverable and it's going to get lost. There are so many things that can happen if you do it that way. Whereas if you at least put a P.O. box, which you should be paying for once you get your first order, in the return address spot, at the very least, you are able to protect your address, but then receive the package back if something does happen. On that note, if you do get a P.O. box, and again, I recommend doing that, you can wait until you sell your first physical item because otherwise you might be paying for it for a couple of months, but also make sure that you do it in like one city over or one county over or something like that so that you do have a little bit more privacy. Like I've said this before, I've shared online that I live in Syracuse, but the thing is the city on my address isn't actually Syracuse. It's a different city because I don't want people to know exactly where I live. So if you were to live in, like, I'm originally from Kansas City. There are a bunch of cities around there where people, might say, oh, I'm from Kansas City, but they're actually from Olathe, Kansas, or Stillwell, or something. I lived on the Kansas side. So, and again, I'm not worried about sharing that I lived on the Kansas side because there are so many cities around there that saying I lived in Kansas City, which is not actually accurate, still protects me enough that I don't share that personal information. I hope that made sense. That was a little bit of a ramble. I'm sorry. The other thing regarding selling physical items is I don't really recommend selling to someone in person, meaning you're not going to say, oh, I'll meet you at like the McDonald's on the corner of 6th and Main or whatever it is, which doesn't actually make sense because that can put you in for a very dangerous thing. Somebody can get your license plate, they can follow you, there are so many things that they can do. So I don't recommend selling in person unless maybe you have someone helping you out with, keeping you safe, and you kind of know the area and know that you can kind of get away without being followed and things like that. There are so many things that you would want to take into account. If you sell online, I don't recommend selling and taking payment through a payment app because I feel like physical items are probably more likely to get charged back, meaning someone can even 3 months later on Cash App say, well, I didn't actually mean to send that to them, or, they can dispute it somehow. So do yourself a favor and sell through a site like ManyVids, which does take some off the top, but doesn't charge you to host you on their site, or a site like All Things Worn, which even though they do charge you a fee up front, does not take any off the top once you sell the item. So that way, all that's going into the item is whatever costs come with it. So if it's a physical item, you would be, in charge of paying for postage, paying for, like the packaging, a stamp, whatever. I know that's the same as postage. And that would be it. You would not have to worry about them taking 20 or 40% or whatever it is. But taking payment through a payment app is always going to be iffy at best. And I will go into that in a later video, but I just wanted to clarify, selling physical items does take some strategy. I mentioned in a content creation post that you want to make sure that you're hiding personal information in any of your photos, or blurring it out at the very least. So for example, I don't take photos looking out my front door or my front window, because that's one of those things that if someone really tried hard enough, they could find me on Google Maps or Google Earth or whatever. If I take a picture and my mail is in the background, I'm either going to blur it out or I'm going to crop that out of the picture because, it's got my home address. If I share a picture with, say, my friend, I know that she has not consented to being on that platform, so I'm either going to crop her out or I'm going to blur her entirely and just say, you don't get to see how pretty my friend is because I'm a dom, and that's kind of the whole thing. So make sure that anything you post doesn't share personal information or the image of someone who hasn't consented to being involved. And that includes, I thought about this when I was getting a pedicure recently, that includes when you're out at like getting services done of some kind. So a wax, a pedicure, your hair, whatever it is, if you're going to post it on a spicy site, you got to cut those people out or take it when they're out of frame. I was sitting in the middle of my pedicure and I was like, ooh, I got to take a picture of this, but she's still here, so I can't take that photo. I waited until she walked away. I took the photo, done, bam. I can't tell you how many times I have seen sex workers post pictures specifically of pedicures being done where the person's hands or even their like the top of their head are in frame, maybe the name of the salon. That is unsafe for multiple reasons. One, it shows online where you might be. Two, it shows somebody who has not consented to being in your content, even if it's just a social media post. I think that we as sex workers need to do better about that kind of thing. So please think about who's in frame when you're taking these photos. Obviously, if it's someone in the background, you're like on vacation or something, that's not something you can really control. People are gonna be in photos when they're at touristy spots or popular, clubs, restaurants, things like that. I'm talking about these people who you are paying for a service, but whom you have also not asked consent. Just that is a privacy thing, so please be careful about that. This is less about privacy and more about protecting your content. I do recommend doing a watermark on everything. Like, I share watermarked trailers on Twitter because I want anybody who might steal that video without my consent to have the watermark over my content, so that at the very least someone sees it and goes, oh, Sarah Sitwell, cool. Some subscription pages automatically add a watermark to like the bottom corner of your post. Some give you the option to do it. It's up to you if you want to, add your own specific watermark in that instance, but I know ManyVids doesn't do their own. So I add a watermark to the bottom corner, one side or the other, depending on the video. Just again, it's a simple watermark. It's just my name in a scrolly font. It's nothing crazy. I haven't ordered any kind of artwork done just because I just don't want to. I haven't decided kind of what I want to do. So even if all you do is go into Canva and create a very simple logo and put it in the bottom corner of your video, that's going to help. It won't help keep it from getting pirated, but at the very least, it's going to have your name on it. Building off of that, if you're ever selling something not using a spicy site, so I know a lot of creators use Dropbox and share things via Dropbox. I do that a couple of times depending on what the content is. If you're ever doing something like that, create a watermark specific to that customer, maybe specific to that folder or whatever, so that if something gets leaked, you can figure out where it came from. I recommend it being specific to the customer, but that's just me. Of course, things can still get leaked directly from spicy sites. Many clip sites and subscription pages have security measures in place, but I will tell you that this is one that is the worst culprit, and it's OnlyFans. I still have stuff leaked from over a year ago. So if you're thinking about spicy sites, I'm going to continue to bash OnlyFans because that is the one that I have the biggest problem with. If you're considering different spicy sites, maybe look up, controversies or leaks or things like that and try to figure it out. I talked to one person whose husband is in IT and said that, yeah, OF is one of the biggest offenders or is one of the worst, or I can't remember how they worded it. But the point is, they really are one of the biggest offenders in leaked content. So just be careful about which sites you join before you join them. I have tried to do all of my research. Nothing is going to be foolproof, but things like ManyVids do, again, have things in place that try to help creators not get their content leaked. I know this was a short one. I'm sure that I will have more, but that's sort of a part 2 to privacy.